Hi, everyone. Lisa Haven here. Well, I hope you liked your stimulus checks because the Biden administration is about to take them all back, plus some. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about a massive tax hike by the Biden administration, unlike we have seen since 1993. And this tax hike, by the way, comes in the middle of a pandemic where all of us are literally struggling to put food on the table and struggling to keep our businesses afloat. What a great time to put this tax hike on the American people. I just feel at this point that the Democratic Party doesn't give a hoot about businesses or people, especially with what they have in store. But the bottom line is they have to pay for all these checks somehow, right? It's not just free money. But before I get into this report, I want to remind you, get a VPN. I can't stress how important this is. It's nobody's business to know what you look at on the internet. And if you really want to be a free person in today's society, this is the way you have to do it, to where nobody can look at or form a profile on you based off of your search history. And a VPN, what it does is it kind of hides that IP address and makes it off as if you're, I don't know, on a server from California when you live in Texas. So check it out at hidewithlisa.com and take advantage of their 30-day free trial. And that's hidewithlisa.com. But before I get into all of the broadcast, I want to say this. You can't just continue to print money and have no consequences. I mean, we have a $1.9 trillion stimulus package on top of other stimulus packages, right? So the way we're headed, what's the breaking point, right? Is it 2 trillion? Is it 3 trillion? Is it 10 trillion? I mean, what's the breaking point to the United States of America can't just print money out of thin air? We got to have a breaking point. You know, if you ask some liberal, they're just like, yeah, print more, give more. I mean, there's no concept of when do you stop, right? Why not make it $10 trillion package? Why not send $5,000 checks or $10,000 checks or 20? I mean, hey, sky's the limit, right? That's the way a lot of people in the liberal mindset are thinking, and it's destroying our country. I mean, is the ultimate agenda to collapse it all and usher in a third world style? It seems as if that's where we're headed, in my opinion. If not, what's the consequences for everything that we're doing? And they're talking about now yet another package to send to the American people. But the bottom line is, how are they going to get that money back, right? Well, take a look at this article here. I want to focus on this first because I love the title on it, and it's on Mrs.org. But it's the New Deal. Instead of a Green New Deal, a New Deal has arrived thanks to the COVID pandemic. Now, the article makes a very powerful point here, and here's what it says. While it's true, the Biden administration is signing off on an immense $1.9 trillion relief package. Is it really relief, by the way? When you're borrowing money to stimulate an economy, it's a temporary Band-Aid that bites us in the butt later, right? But anyway, I digress. The fact is, the Trump administration already approved $4 trillion in new spending for COVID-19 stimulus and relief. And the Biden administration will do an additional on top of that. To put this into perspective, keep in mind that during most of the Obama years, total federal outlays ranged from $3.5 to $3.9 trillion. Trump pushed those numbers up even further, toppling at $4.4 trillion in 2009, right? In the year 2020 fiscal year, which ended in September, outlays skyrocketed to $6.5 trillion. That doesn't even capture all of his stimulus spending. Some of it will count under the 2021 fiscal year, and we still have a long way to go, right? Now, the Biden administration has added nearly $2 trillion to that total, and there's likely to be more relief and stimulation going forward. Somebody's got to ask, where's the money coming from? Meanwhile, the one-year deficit exploded to $3.3 trillion in 2020, more than doubling the $1.4 trillion deficit that piled on in 2009. To make this all possible, of course, the central banks have furiously created new printed money, showering Washington and Wall Street with dollars. As the Fed brought up U.S. debt on the secondary market and even began buying corporate debt, naturally, the Fed's balance sheet is now well above $7 trillion. Tick-tock on the economy. I mean, we're here now. A lot of people say inflation's coming, stagflation. I mean, there's consequences for this stuff. You know, I mean, what's the deal here? Are we headed to a one world currency? Is that the end game? Well, we all know what the Bible has to say about that. That's absolutely an area that at least the Bible talks about as far as a global world order. And you got to have some kind of currency for that, right? But take a look at this article here on Bloomberg.com. Biden eyes first major tax hike since 1993. An economic plan. Now, I love the way that this Zero Hedge article kind of expands on it. So I'm going to show you this one and focus on this one. But Biden plans biggest federal tax hikes since 1993 to fund infrastructure and climate initiatives. Now, the article goes on to say this. Biden is embarking on what could be the biggest federal tax hike since 1993 to finance an infrastructure plan and Biden's climate change initiatives, healthcare, and economic inequality plans, right? Here's more from Bloomberg. Unlike the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 Stimulus Act, the next initiative, which is expected to be even bigger, won't rely just on the government debt as funding source. While it's being increasingly clear that tax hikes will be a component, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has said at the least part of the next bill will have to be paid for and point to higher rates. Key advisors are now making preparations for a package of measures. You see, they can't keep printing money. Somebody has to pay for something, right? The article goes on. According to Bloomberg, the tax hikes would likely take effect next year, despite modest support for delaying them further among Democrats. An independent analysis of the Biden campaign tax plan pushed by the Tax Policy Center and cited by Bloomberg estimated the new revenue streams would raise $2.1 trillion over a decade. That's a lot. Though, given the current political climate, right, the final total will likely be smaller. To be sure, Democrats will need to convince 10 Republicans to back the bill to circumvent the filibuster. The overall program has yet to be unveiled. Nevertheless, analysts are penciling in between $2 to $4 trillion. And how does it work? Well, according to Bloomberg, in this Zero Hedge article, Bloomberg has a list of proposals that are reportedly being considered, though they all likely won't make the final bill. Okay, this is what's being projected. But either way, if everything goes through or if part of it goes through, this is a tax hike. We can't afford one right now. American people are literally on their last. They're borrowing money to survive. Let's just put it that way. Notably, the first two bullets would effectively unwind the two biggest components of the Trump tax cuts. Goodbye, Trump tax cuts, right? It would raise the corporate tax to 28 from 21. Massive. That's a 7-point increase on businesses who were told to close their doors, who were told that they had to implement all these new measures and put new, it costs money to implement all these measures, who had to let go of employees during the COVID if they were around or caught someone with COVID, leaving massive gaps in their workflow, having to close their businesses at time and literally close their door for months on end, depending on what state you were in. And now, let's just raise it all. Imagine what America's going to look like when this hits next year, right? On top of an economic depression akin to that of the 1930s. I mean, really? And what happens? And this is why I say, you know, those stimulus checks, I hope you liked them because Biden's about to take them all back. Because if you're one of these businesses and you got this tax hike, right? Or as I'm going to get into a moment, raising the income tax on individuals earning more than $400,000, that's normally your small business owners, right? If you fall into some of that category, and the second one here, paring back tax preferences for so-called pass-through business such as limited liability or LLC or partnerships, right? But anyway, if this is you as a business, you have a couple of options here, right? Either lay off some people because you can't afford them anymore, lower wages, which you really don't want to do, or cut back bonuses, right? That's something you can do. Or you can move out of the country where you're going to pay less in situations or hire workers out of the country. You can try to get some kind of technological advancements in your company where now a machine can do the work. Maybe the company has put it off for some time, but because of stuff like this, they might have to get that machine to replace the human to get the work. Or another thing that could happen, the fifth thing that could happen, they raise their prices on whatever the product is. And if you're doing this to every business, small business, guess who has to pay that? You and I. We are the ones that get laid off from our jobs. We are the ones that get let go. We are the ones who have to foot the bill on paying the higher prices for all the products. That's us. That stimulus check is a penny compared to what's coming with stuff like this, right? But he goes on, he wants to expand the estate taxes reach and a higher capital gain tax for those earning over $1 million annually, right? Lots of interesting things in this little bill here. But the ultimate agenda, in my opinion, is the complete destruction of the United States of America, economically speaking. I mean, unless we're just going to allow money to be printed out of our rear ends forever, amen? Right? I mean, these liberal people don't think. Like they just let's fund college and let's fund healthcare for everyone and let's give everybody a free house because it's the right thing to do. Is it really? Let's think about this. If you're all for this virtue signal as a liberal and you're going to pay for that person's college, why don't you go foot the bill for that person's college? If you're so righteous, go do it. Oh, no. This has to be they won't do it, right? They won't do it. Oh, this has to be a community effort. Well, how are we going to pay for that? Oh, they're just take it from the rich people. Well, there's only so much you could take because when you end up doing all of that and you're doing what Elizabeth Warren, we're going to tax 90% of everybody that makes over $1 million, you're going to really collapse society because then they're going to be like, if I can make more money working for someone than running my business, hell, I'm going to do that because this 90% paycheck, 90% of my paycheck ain't going to cut it. I'm going to quit that job. Right? And be like everybody else. Or you could just be like, I'm just going to suck it off of everybody and do nothing because, hey, I get everything paid for. Here's the thing. And I'm going to be really frank here. Anybody who has children knows this, which is a majority of you. If you buy your child something, say you bought them a car, right? They're a teenager, they're ready to drive. This is your present to them. You pay for everything, insurance, car, fixes, all of that. Well, they're not going to treat that car as good or as they should if it's freely given. No, they're going to possibly mistreat it because they don't have any financial investment in that car, right? It's like anything else. It's like, here, if we give this to you free, well, you have no financial investment in that. It's like a house rental. Like if I rent a house, I'm not going to take as good care of it as if I bought my own house. Why? Because I'm financially invested in it, and I personally had to work for it to get it. Right? It's honestly a biblical concept, and it's a very good one. A very good one. And that's the kind of society that we are headed for, and why socialist economies like Venezuela crashed. Anyhow, look, you got to get on over to Restricted Republic. I'm only going to offer this limited time offer. And right now, I want you to get over there because I'm going to put a big bombshell video out today on Restricted Republic. I can't even tell you the topic. It's that big, right? Here on YouTube. And right now, if you want to check out Restricted Republic, I'm going to give it to you for $1 for the first month. Try it out. If you don't like it after that first month, you're only out $1. And if you want to stay, you can choose to stay. That's up to you. And you can cancel whenever you want, anytime you want. But for $1, use the code DOLLAR and get on Restricted Republic. Check out the real information because I'll be honest, what we're saying here on YouTube is very limited. It's very, very limited. You have to start getting over to these alternative platforms. And right now, $. Use the coupon code $, on the monthly subscription, and you get the first month for $1. Anyhow, I love all of you so very much. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.